Fred Wilkinson, Chief Editor with the National Provisioner. Today I'm speaking with Chef Christophe. He does culinary consulting for Tyson Foods. Chef, thank you for joining me today. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Fred. It's a pleasure.
Of course, anytime. To get things started, could you just give us a little bit about your background as a chef and your role in working with Tyson Foods?
Of course. I'm originally from France. I was born and trained as a chef there. My father is a butcher by trade, so I essentially grew up in the butchering industry. Chose to become a chef later on, so I'm a fully trained butcher as well as a trained chef. I moved to the United States. So first, I attended culinary school in France for 3 years, and I obtained a bachelor's in culinary science. I came to America in 1995, and I worked in several establishments, notably, country clubs in Jacksonville, Florida. I ran the Tampa Yacht and Country Club for 10 years here in Tampa. Was also the chef for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers for about 3 years, until I decided to open my own private chef, company. Currently, I'm a private chef for a family here in Tampa. I do video work for Cuisinart on the Home Shopping Network, and I consult for Maiden, and I was assigned to the Tyson beef and pork segment for their company. So that's what I do for them. I do blogging, content creation, recipe development, and interviews.
Okay, well, very interesting. Well, to get things started, I wonder if you could speak a little bit about some trends that you're seeing with chefs' use of proteins at food service. Are there any particular cuts or cooking techniques that are on trend these days?
Yeah, yes, there are many things, and let me begin by saying that everybody and everything was affected by COVID, and I think that COVID really started a lot of things in that industry. The main reason being, the necessity for people to kind of fend for themselves and start cooking at home, and the use of the internet exploded because people were starting to really try to understand how to provide food for themselves. A lot of the trends I've seen lately are really going towards ethnic cooking, Korean spices, Vietnamese dishes. A lot of chefs have been kind of pushed to respond to that demand because throughout COVID, diners became more educated about food and different cultures. And I know that one of the biggest issues that we all face as chefs is, really meeting a demand of like your traditional diners versus your more, adventurous ones. And when it comes to building menus these days, we really have to identify what we call the workhorses, which are the lower end cuts that will provide you better margin, and it will allow you a lot more creativity in terms of how do you want to design your menu versus your stars, which are your, primary high-end cuts, your tenderloins, your New York strips, your ribeyes, porterhouse, and all those things. And I think that's what I'm seeing is a lot of chefs that I still talk to. We're really interested in bringing all that ethnic influence in our menu, which in turns gives us a broader audience, and we can attract more diners with more and different backgrounds and interests.
Okay. With rising prices squeezing restaurant operations and their patrons as well, how are chefs using proteins to add value while trying to keep menu prices contained as much as possible?
I think so. The first area that I'd like to probably talk about is how more and more chefs and establishments are using different proteins for breakfast. Right. So typically breakfast, when you think breakfast, you think, bacon or Canadian bacon, maybe a steak and egg and things like this. We're seeing a lot more pork being used for breakfast, replacing Canadian bacon. And the variation of the pork would be either a pulled pork. We see a lot of fried pork on waffles instead of chicken and waffles. We're really trying to like expand where we can place protein on our menu, not just lunch and dinner. The heaviest use typically for protein is dinner. Lunch, typically having more sandwiches that doesn't necessarily include protein, or salads and things like this. But we're seeing a lot more, a more broader use of protein throughout the entire menu. Also utilizing lower end cuts, things that need more cooking time or more marinating time, is also helping a lot, because those items are available to purchase at a lower cost and allow you to make better margin in terms of how you price your menu.
Okay. What value-added innovations would chefs like to see from their meat and poultry suppliers to help restaurants kind of mitigate their ongoing staffing issues?
Yeah, that one's a good one, because, well, staffing and skilled staffing in kitchens always been a bit of an issue. And I think that where companies like Tyson can really come into play in a much bigger way is how they can provide consistency. I was recently in Sioux City, and I got to see the infrastructure behind everything we're talking about, and it's really massive. And I was very impressed with how they're organized and the multi layers of everything. I had no idea, and I've been in the industry all my life, and I just didn't know. But I think that what we can make our mark is providing chefs with items that are already cooked, already marinated, and in turn provide them with consistency and eliminate steps in the kitchen. If you don't trim things in house, if you don't butcher things in house, if you don't have to marinate or stew or steam or braise in house, and those items can come to your kitchen ready to reheat, that is the one way to eliminate how you're hurting for staff, because the more steps, the more hands need to touch the products, essentially the more staff you need. So if you're short on staff, those items are just exactly what you need. And there is no limits to what we can design in terms of flavor profile or cuts, or any idea that you may have can be accomplished and provided to your door in a consistent manner, and also a safe manner, right? All the steps of safety in food are in place, and I think that to me is probably the biggest area where we can help with the staff issue.
Could you maybe speak a little bit about how plant-based meat alternatives are being used to complement either traditional proteins, or how they are competing directly with traditional proteins on menus these days?
So that one is kind of funny for me, because growing up in the butcher shop, if I talked about alternative meats, my dad would disown me immediately. But I think that alternative to meat it's a niche, right? It's like certain people are like, whether they have a personal interest in it, or it's a dietary issue, or whatever the case may be. I think it's still a very small segment of diners. And I've tried, the Impossible Burgers and things like this, and I kind of enjoyed them. There was nothing wrong with them. But I just think that in terms of the more traditional diner, for example, summer's right around the corner. Everybody's going to start barbecuing ribs and grilling burgers and everything. And I don't think that traditional meat cuts are going anywhere. I do think there's room for alternative, to meat. But again, like I said, I think it's still a very small segment, and the taste of real beef and the taste of real pork is pretty much impossible to really recreate for like those who really enjoy eating meat.
Yeah, I guess for me, if I think meat alternative, I think a falafel or eggplant parmesan or something like that.
Yes, yes,
I'm more traditional than some eaters are, for sure.
that's true.
Um, In an increasingly competitive food service marketplace, how can meat and poultry help smaller operators set themselves apart from chain restaurants?
So I think that this one comes down to interpersonal relationships. I've dealt with a lot of salespeople in my life, and um, the ones that come on top usually are the ones that have taken the time to study their account. You know who you are, what you do, and how you do it. And it's kind of interesting how um, the power of the chef. If you run your own kitchen, if you run your own establishment, um, the food always tastes better when the chef talks about it. So when the sales team is helping support you in terms of exposing you to different things that you can then be creative on, and then you can in turn sell it. I think that's where the biggest support can come. Your sales team is your strength and your biggest ally. You just have to study the demographics of the area the establishment is in. You need to study the style of the chef, what their thinking is like, and what their target is, what their price point is, and really kind of break it down and come up with things that will help him, be creative and bring things to his customers that they haven't seen before, and give him a chance to explain where he's coming from and why he wants to put this on the menu. In my years in kitchens, I was never as successful as the days that I actually went out to the dining room, and the chef comes out and everybody drinks what you say, and you can tell them exactly what they're going to eat and why. And I think that's where that could be a lot of help.
Well, Chef Christophe, thank you very much for joining me today. I appreciate it.
It's my pleasure. I appreciate it. I look forward to doing more with you.
All right.